We
feel like
said we
it
were
should be
gonna.
like something the moms say, like shh, shh, like
Yeah.
the Coco Melon song. Like the mom says, shh, shh.
Oh, because the mom is always the one shushing. Look at us. We're jumping into this already without even announcing what we're doing. Hi, my name is Marae, and this is Paula. And today we are going to be talking shit about other moms. How exciting is this topic?
I love this topic. It's like it's one of those small realizations you have after motherhood, actually, that you're like,
Yes.
oh, wow, maybe I shouldn't have been so harsh.
I wish we were like on a webinar sort of thing so we can get people's responses. But if you
Oh
just
yeah,
nod, we'll feel your energy. Nod if you thought you had all the answers to motherhood and you could do better than every woman you saw on the street before you became a mother. Because Paula and I think one of the topics that we started connecting with the most was this topic. It's like this deep passion for never talking shit about another mom. I don't care what you're doing. And this is how okay, this is when I knew that Paula and I will be good friends. I don't remember where we were. I think we were in Greece when we had just met. And there was a mom crossing the street with a baby, a toddler who was like throwing a tantrum or something. And I was like, oh my God, look at this. And Paula's response was, oh, poor mom. Like and I grew up in, I'm Cuban. I grew up in Latin America. I moved to the United States in the early 2000s. I'm a millennial. So like I grew up with this generation of like, if your hair isn't perfect, if the kid has rowdy hair, the mom is crappy. If they're showing up one
yeah,
day late to school, the mom is, a shithead. If the kid is crying in public or running or being human, oh, the mom she's the one, even if there's
yeah.
like a dad and a grandparent and everybody, it's the mom. She's the crappy one, she's the one at fault. And I remember when the first time there was something happened. I think it was that time that mom was crossing the street with a child, and you were like, "Oh, bless her, poor mom." And I was like, "Yes, yes, man, yes." Taking a place of empathy for this poor woman that has been thrown into this monumentally responsible job that she did not know what it would entail, with no help and no handbook. Like we're all thrown at this,
Yeah,
just as we are.
and
Here you're
having
at in
to
life.
safely cross the street with a child. That's
Yeah.
just job for a genius. That right there.
saw a reel the other day and somebody was like, I get to go home with this baby, but also who I'm going home with this baby? Like I
Yeah,
just
like help.
what? Like how do I do this?
Right, like yeah. After I left her hospital, I was there for a night, and I had a C-section, and they left me. They left. They left. I just went with the little baby. They were like, yeah, sure, right.
Oh God.
Like, and the responsibility. But it is. It's like one of the things that for me in motherhood was well, before motherhood, I guess, I was really harsh. I was very harsh on a lot of mothers, and it's because of yeah, like you said, the culture and the generations that we grew up with. Because you see a mom, even my mom would say stuff like this. It's always the parent, oh, that mom didn't brush the hair, oh, that mom didn't do this, that mom didn't do that. And when I was growing up, obviously it was always the case of going after the mums, being like, ah, if it was me, I would do this differently.
Mm.
The classic comment that you do every time when you're single. So once I became a mother and got the jewel that I have a first son, and realized how hard it is, I was like, oh, okay, well, never mind. I will feel sorry. And then it was also like a thing that I realized I was like sorry for that mother, and then it actually clicks, and you're like, yeah, sorry for that mother. That has to me. I feel like I remember that scene. It was just thinking of myself crossing that street with my
Mm.
toddler at that exact time. Like just the
Yeah.
thought of it, it was
Yeah. I think it's also
because it's crazy.
no, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's crazy, but
It is because I think
took
you
too long
also
to
like
say.
as a mom, yeah, I was like, oh wait, there's more. I think it's crazy because as a mom, you start sort of connecting the dots. Like I remember I spent a few months living with my cousin, like one summer we were just in Florida visiting, and we stayed with my cousin. She was switching houses, and she had a toddler, and it was just the amount of crap everywhere. Like no matter what, it just seemed like no matter what we did, there's always a mess. And this cousin of mine, we're like sisters. Like we grew up together my entire life. Like, if there's a person that unjudges her because I know her so well. But I remember feeling and thinking like, damn, like when did you become so messy? Like, when did you become the kind of person that can live like this? And then I became a mom. And you guys, like, I'm not a super clean mom. I'm not a person who needs to clean every day to feel like I've accomplished something. I'm not, a neat freak or anything of the sort. But I dislike passionately when there's a mess because it affects me mentally. Like I wake up and I open my bedroom door,
Yeah.
and if there's a mess everywhere, that's just like already a bad place for me to start. And it's just when you become a toddler mom, especially those first months. I'm assuming for you it started really early because Flynn was walking before breathing. But it's like when you get to that place when they start moving and touching things and putting them out of place, like it's like it, how do you win? You have this
How?
little
Like, yeah,
this
exactly.
little
Like,
human going around taking things off the shelves, and that's all they're doing all day. They have nothing else to do while you have to catch up with that and everything else you have to do. So it's like you're outnumbered no matter what you do.
yeah, yeah. That's why we have so many shelves that have nothing. Like, we bought so many shelves that we were like, we're gonna put like shit. No, like our shelves have nothing. Like
Nothing.
literally the two bottom shelves because what is the point?
When Alaska
He's
started
just going to.
walking,
He just removes everything.
oh yeah, okay, so when she started walking, we lived in a place that had like the kitchen cabinets were just like we never proof whatever the kitchen cabinets or anything like that because I figured the earlier she figures out where things are and that she can grab them, the least exciting they will be for her later on. And it actually worked out really well for my child. Again, I don't think this is something that I can claim as like I did it well. I think it's more a personality thing. I think she's the kind of child that if she
Yeah,
knows what it is, she loses interest
yeah.
because
I
I
tried that.
can.
I tried that with
Yeah,
mine. It didn't
yeah.
work.
That's why I'm like, there are some things that I'm like, oh, this is the hack that I can share. And there are some things that I'm like, I'm almost positive this is just my one child. Like, let me try it with a second. If it works with a second, then I can share the tip, like, and see if it works for other people, like before I claim that I know. Because so Alaska,
I
like
need
I
more
can tell
evidence.
her, yeah, this needs to be a proper study. Right now it's just a hypothesis. But with Alaska, if I tell her, don't put this in your mouth, it's dangerous, you could choke, she will not put it in her mouth. I'm sure Flynn would do the opposite, just like my niece would do the opposite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just personalities are different. But when she was starting to walk, we had the only thing I had in the kitchen bottom shelves were teas. I was like obsessed with tea. It was really cold in Ensenada that year. I don't know. I had a lot of teas. And I remember one day I walked into the kitchen. Obviously, I was probably like 20 seconds after her because, like she maybe just started walking. It's not like you're going to let them walk for 3 hours. And I walked into the kitchen and it looked like a Chinese tea factory. Like every single tea bag was outside of the box. And I'm talking about at least 20 boxes of teas. All the tea just it was like Christmas, but with tea bags. And it took me, I swear to you, it must have taken me at the most 1 minute from the last moment I saw her until I caught her in the kitchen. You know,
That's all it takes. That's all it takes.
that's all it
That's all it
takes.
takes.
It's so
It's all
crazy how
it.
fast they move.
Yes, it's so crazy, and to keep that tidy is impossible. And yeah, it's we've learned the hard way that motherhood comes with its, you know, joys, moments of joy.
Yes.
But yeah, like we don't like. I don't like to judge other moms, and also because also came very clear from the internet and sharing the sketches I do online, and knowing other moms that share things, and you see the comments that people just leave without like you don't know the whole story, like you just see a
Mm.
6-second video and you just assume that this mother somehow is neglecting their child, and you don't know what happened before this video. You don't know how what happened before. You don't know what happens in
Yeah.
between. You just assume you know everyone's life, and then you just assume people are neglecting kids, and yeah, and you just assume you're better. And that's the thing. Yeah, we assume we're better than other people just because we do things differently, and our kids respond differently, and we don't know anything. Like, you can have an idea of how a kid's going to react, but if this kid is completely different, this mom has to live completely different from your life.
Right.
It's as
Right. And
simple as that. Like,
I think that's also a big topic to talk about. Maybe we can do a whole episode on that because I feel like
yeah,
there's this big disparity in social media where people are giving advice or tips, and then there's all these people that are always like looking for the flaws in the tips and the advice. And there's this very, very thin line between this is what works for my child. I don't think it's gonna work for every like we're big on this is what worked for our kid. And one of the things that we always make a big deal on, especially with the flying topic, is separating the advice. Like we have reels that are literally opposite advice because we are totally different moms, even though we agree on so many things, but we also have things that we do differently. Our kids are completely different, different personalities, etc. And I think that it's so important to, when we look at other people, not just try not to judge because you really literally do not know what they're going through, but also realize that we all have to make decisions based on our family, like on the specificity of the moment, the circumstance, and the child or children we're
Mhm.
dealing with,
Yeah,
and this the variables are endless. Like it's literally never going to
yeah.
be the same,
There's
even
just
for
so much in
moms of the
play.
same, right? Even if you have two kids, like even twins, like it's different for
Yes,
both.
yeah, 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 yeah. Me and my twin were completely different.
That's
Like
so
just
crazy. I always
that, like
forget you
we
have a
had to
twin.
handle things differently. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just it. That's it is. So you never know. You
So
never
remember,
know what's going
remember
on.
we were in Madeira and we asked your mom if, because Flynn was climbing on the roof tiles, remember? And we asked her if, like if it was, because she was like, this boy is crazy or something like that. And I asked like, and this is her, she's already had twins, and she said that Flynn was more active and more daring than both you and your brother together as twins.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And mind you, she had you guys
yeah.
like
He's
10
been
years after her other child. So this
yeah.
is not a woman, like this is a woman that had twins 10 years after her first kid. So like I'm having a second pregnancy three and a half years after my first child. And it's already so much harder because there's a child, because my body is different, because I'm older, etc., etc.,
Yeah.
etc. Imagine your mom 10 years, like you're done. Your child is a teenager basically. And all of a sudden you have twins. And still,
She was 29 though.
yeah, it doesn't matter. Like I'm not saying that her body wasn't probably at the state that my body is or whatever, but dude, like all of us, like how we feel
Oh
this
no, but it
freedom.
is. It is. It's crazy. Like it's
Like,
crazy.
like,
Yeah.
okay, you're not
But
breastfeeding anymore, you're not changing diapers, you're not chasing somebody to clean their butt when they finish pooping to make sure they're not smearing shit on your couch, whatever. Like a 10-year-old is a self-sufficient. I mean, there's a different array of
yeah,
problems, but then the headache of having a
it
two
is. It
year
is.
old and a
I find
12
it.
year
I
old.
find it crazy. Yeah, how people do that as well. Like, not crazy. That's the wrong choice of words. But I find it really fascinating, actually, how you can, you know, I don't know how you can go from like, a space of 10 years for having a kid, like, on purpose, because my parents was on purpose. Like, how would you pick that much
There are a lot of people
time,
like that.
right?
There's a lady that
And
works with my
it's
husband.
interesting.
She has two sets of children. The first two are like 10 and 11, and the other ones are like 3 and 4. Like she just decided to go back and have more kids.
Yeah,
That
it's
seems
fascinating
also,
because like it's wild. It's
but
wild
I think it might
because
seem
like I don't know if
crazy
I
to
would be
us
doing this.
because no, but I think it's also because we're in the little people stage of motherhood. You know what I mean? Where there's so much that we
Yeah,
need to be
yeah.
involved in. You know what I mean? Like our time for ourselves or for like I think when you have a teenager, there's a different array of problems. Like obviously a lot more talks, a lot more involvement, a lot more sneaking around to make sure they're not doing anything like whatever that entails. I know there's and I know it's not easier. I know it's not less work. It's just different kind of work. But I feel like on this
Yeah,
very like on the first few years, you're so involved all the time that it's like I just cannot
because it's like
imagine
you're
doing
probably
it with.
missing it as well.
There's a friend of Rogers that gave birth to 4 kids at the same time. They had quadruplets. I don't I will never understand. Like how do people, like these are the sort of
People actually
circumstances
do
that,
that.
yeah,
People actually do it. It's crazy.
yeah. And it's crazy because, like for us with our realities, like I cannot imagine taking care of 4 kids at the same time. I can barely, sometimes I have the one and I'm like like am I just not good enough? Like,
Help.
am I not sufficient of a human for more? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's happening? Why
Uh,
can't we?
yeah, I think if we would given the circumstances, I would adapt because that's
Yeah, you have to.
well,
But
that's how we
what do
did
you
with the
do?
one. That's what you did with the one. It was
Yeah,
different, and you adapted, and you did it right. So I feel
yeah.
like if it was the same, where you would just adapt,
Adapt.
you
Yeah,
would learn. You go.
like, lose some sanity, but you'll make it alive. Like every time I
Yes,
have this one cousin
exactly.
of mine that every time I tell him, like I remember when I was pregnant, I was like, oh, and they were expecting their second, and I was like, wow, two. And every time we talk about kids, he's always like, dude, our grandparents had like 7, 10, 11 kids. Like they survived. If they had, all of our parents have, all of my uncles
Yeah.
from my dad and mom's
And
side
it was
have
back
2
then.
kids. And it was back then, you had to do laundry by hand and stuff like that, like, oh my God. So,
Exactly.
I always think of that.
They-
I mean, I okay, so I grew up in Cuba, and Cuba is like living back in the 50s. And I remember going to help my mom with laundry. Helping my mom with laundry was not what Alaska does. Alaska goes down with me, sits on top of the washer. I was like, throw the basket of clothing in there. My mom had to like, and then we never had the soap. This sound I'm doing is, if you're listening, by the way, and not watching, it's like, like washing the clothes against a stone or whatever. We had this like
the rack
stone,
situation that you
yeah.
wash.
So we had this like stone sinks outside of our house, like on the alleyway behind the kitchen, and we would fill it up with water. And then we had this giant bars of soap that honestly were really hurtful. I always ended up with bruise. And by the way, when I helped my mom with laundry, I'm sure I was there for 2 minutes, 3 times, and then like Alaska, it's like, I'm done. Like it's not like I was not the child that was doing laundry with my mother
Hey,
every
you're
day.
being slaved.
Yeah, I was not the child that was being put to work at all. Cuba is very big on education. Children have to go to school. So I just want to make that clear, because I'm making it sound like I was like, doing laundry every day on a stone. But it
Like
was
back.
literally, yeah, like back in the day, like proper back in the day. But then I think about
Yeah.
those women who were actually doing that. They had to walk a mile to the river, bang the goddamn clothes on the rocks, and I don't even know how those came out clean. And then, and then the child is there, and if the child is anything like my child, she gets hungry the second we get to the river. Then I gotta walk back and find a snack, and
Back then, bro. Back then there was no snacks. It
no
was like
snack.
you
You
eat your
you
meal. You
hungry?
eat
Eat
your
some
meal.
leaves. So okay,
Yeah. Drink
in
some water.
Cuba, there's a saying. I'm gonna translate it. So this reminds me of Modern Family, how Sofia Vergara is always translating the sayings in
That's
Spanish and
how
in
she
English that
translates
sound
it.
horrible. So brace for this. The saying goes, in Spanish you say "Mamá tengo hambre," which means "Mama, I'm hungry," and then you say "Alza la patilambe," which means lift up your leg and lick. Like "Mamá tengo hambre, alza la patilambe." I have no idea where the saying came from or what it's supposed to be or where you're supposed to lick or how it's supposed to like quench your hunger. I don't know. I don't know, but all I know is
It's
that
just
this
one
is
of
what I
those
was.
stupid sayings. Oh, I love that.
I think it's because it kind of rhymes, hambre y lambe. I think honestly this is why it's being said, but what's funny is that this is what I was told, when I was hungry. Um, and then I feel guilty when I offer my daughter an apple instead of, I don't know, a bigger meal. And it's like, dude, I was just told to lick myself. Like
Yeah.
a horrible thing. Anyway, the point of this conversation, we've deviated again, but the point here is that
Yes.
you really should not judge because every mom is doing the absolute best they can. And just to wrap this episode up, because I think we've just deviated so much into like, Cuban laundry stories. Um, I want to talk about briefly about business because there's a whole new wave of entrepreneur moms. A lot of them are with us in our community. We're helping so many moms like break out of the cycle of like I don't know what to do in my life after motherhood. By the way, if you are a brand new mom and you're feeling like you don't know where you're going, check us out at Travel Family Academy or travelfamilyacademy.com/blog. We share tons of information on how to monetize your passions, your new passions, or how to find the things that you're loving of your new journey of motherhood and how to find your way into doing something meaningful with your life that generates an income without having to spend 80 hours a week outside of your house. But I think in the space of entrepreneurship and this new age of motherhood where we are allowed and um, motivated to find businesses to be entrepreneurs and mothers simultaneously, I think there's a lot of this competition of like, oh, like she's doing this and that's just kind of crappy, or oh, she's trying to do that and I wonder who's taking care of her kids, or she's using her kids for photos to like make money on Instagram and la 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 la. And it's back to the same topic. It's like you don't know what a mom is going through and what she's there's a coach that I know that she got big in 2020. This woman, her daughter's name is Alaska actually as well. She's from San Francisco, single mother, became a social media manager, started working online. She started actually creating those little follow trains of moms the ones that are really not useful at all anymore, that you really can't find success with. But somehow she found success because it was 2020 and I think people were trying to grow. And so she started this whole big mom community. And this woman was almost homeless when she started doing this. And she was able to provide for her daughter. So you can sit here and judge her for doing something that, let's say, I don't agree with. I don't think those mom trains really lead anywhere and they're not really, as a marketing strategy, they're not sustainable. Or you can sit here and be like, wow, what a badass. This woman was alone at home,
Yeah.
got fired from her job,
Yeah,
and she
exactly.
somehow found a way to make an income and a life and a future for her family, for her and her daughter, right? And I feel like in this new age of like social media and so many opportunities online, those things, those opportunities wouldn't be available. And they're not available for those of us that are sitting there judging and thinking, oh, look what she's doing, look how wrong it is, look how bad it is, like la 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 la. Because there's always going to be something that we're not going to agree with. There's always going to be something that we can do differently. But that's the beauty of it. Just go do it differently and continue on your merry way. You don't have to sit there and bash someone
Yeah,
for it, you know?
exactly, exactly. And there's enough space for everybody to share their whatever passion, business there is. There's no need, like, you should be supporting each other and helping each other instead of fighting each other. There's no need for that. Like, there's no need to be shitty.
Yeah, that's a perfect
Shitty
word for
about
it.
things. It's just there's no need for it because like we are all different. We all work differently. And again, same goes for business and whatever is your choice and whatever it makes you work and your family and your business, that's your way of doing it. And everyone else does it differently. And we should just respect it and move along with our lives. And if it's
Moving
something that
right
you don't
along.
accept and you don't respect, or something that is really, really wrong for you, just leave. Like,
Yeah,
don't. You don't
I'll,
have to. You don't have to make it right. It's nothing to do
it's
with
not your
you. Like,
job. It's
just
not your
move
job.
along.
No,
It's not
I have
your
a
job to
perfect
fix it. Not your family. Nothing to do.
I have a perfect example for this, just to wrap this up. So I remember last summer or the one before, we were in Mexico and we met this awesome family that have a little girl, and Alaska and her like hit it off and we're like, yay, let's hang out. Anyway, long story short, they came to hang out one day and I watched as this woman fed this 3 year old kid or 2 year old kid an entire mojito loaded with rum that I had made. And I was like, I was not okay with that. I was not comfortable with that. Like, and I was like, oh, it's no, this is not, this is alcoholic. And she was like, oh, it's okay, it's Mexico, this is how we do it here, sort of thing. And like I was just not okay with it, so I distanced myself from that family. I'm like, I don't want to go to another gathering where I'm watching a child being intoxicated at this age because they think culturally is okay. It's not my place. I'm not gonna sit here and tell her how to raise her kid. I'm not gonna sit here and whatever. Like that
Yeah.
encounter made me uncomfortable. It helped me realize the boundaries that I have as a mother and as a person, and like where I want to be at
Yeah.
with people around my daughter. But it still doesn't give me the right to sit here and bash her for the way she's doing things, or to like
Or
tell
tell her
other
off
people, or
for it.
tell her off, or tell her what to do, or tell other people, or go around town, or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, this is your life. I mean, obviously, like I'm not talking about a person who's like abusing their kid, basically. Like I'm not talking about that. Like this is just one party. She just gave her a mojito. Like I'm not gonna get involved because it's not I don't know them well enough. It was recent relationships, so I just distance myself. Um, and
Yeah.
obviously it's different if you have like a situation with somebody that's closer to you, or the child is at risk. I'm not saying that don't advocate for children, but I just feel like there's always a decision to be made, and it's always going to be easier to
Yeah.
put someone down, to bash someone, to judge someone. And the higher road, the most difficult road, is always to have grace. um and I feel like it's a road we should all take, at least at the beginning, because it would avoid a lot more conflicts for everybody involved.
Yeah. Especially yeah, at the beginning, especially because it's like at first you never know exactly the whole spectrum of life of a person's life. I remember being like that. Like I always, first thing I would always do would be judge, and I
Mm.
never like I just don't know. I don't know enough, and now my whole life is creating backstories for people, so I have a reason to feel bad for them.
Yes, yes, to
You know
advocate
when
for
people
them.
are
Yeah,
dicks and like people are just being
yeah.
horrible for no reason, so like I'd be like, okay, maybe they just didn't have coffee this morning and they're just
Mm.
having a horrible time. So
Maybe
it
they
just
just got
makes
into an
my life easier.
argument. Yeah. And I think that
Like
is the biggest
collarbones.
takeaway. The biggest takeaway is that, especially if you're a mom, you cannot afford to spend the energy building all this negativity and all this judgment about what nobody else is doing. The best route for you
Yeah.
as a mom, forget about somebody else, for you, the best route is to have empathy, lead with empathy and grace, and move on, because you have more important things to worry about, like laundry. Mine hasn't been folded for 2 days. And with that,
I have wet laundry in the basket for 2 days. Oh, it'll
you have to
eventually
wash
be
that.
put
You have
back
to wash it
inside the.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably wash it again. Oh well.
You will never hear us giving you laundry tips. We're, I think
Oh
that's
yeah,
definitely
sorry. Sorry about that. If that's what you're coming here for,
yeah.
forget it.
If you're here for laundry advice, you've come to the wrong place. But if you want to talk more about, standing behind one another and creating a community of mothers that is a little bit less judgmental and a lot more supportive for taking risks and going out there and making mistakes and learning along the way, then follow us at Who Let the Moms Out that pod on Instagram and come have conversations with us. Otherwise, we will see you here next week to talk about some other mom topic.
Thank you guys so much for joining, and see you next week. I was going to say later, but it's next week.
Bye.
Bye.